Ciao, grazie, golami. I am Lieutenant Aldo Ran, and me and my buddy here are in the Nazi killing business. And today we are going to find out where that damn Nazi is at, and we're going to scalp the bastard.
Welcome to Beyond the Campfire. I am one of your hosts, Stephen the Indian, along with Will the Cowboy. And yeah, we're a cowboy and Indian talking
Hunt
about
Nazis.
ghosts, conspiracy theories. But today, we're hunting some Nazis, aren't we?
Yeah, we're in the Nazi killing business now. We're podcasters now. We're Nazi hunters.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So welcome back. If you are new to this podcast, we are Beyond the Campfire. Uh, like I said, yeah, we're a cowboy and Indian talking about ghosts, cryptids, conspiracy theories, all that good stuff. So if you're interested in this content, give us a follow. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Beyond Campfire or at Beyond Campfire Podcast. And yeah, would love for you guys to connect with us and see us talk about spooky stuff. So yeah, we got a fun episode today, don't we, Will?
We
What
do. Well, we're talking about how me and Steven might be getting canceled.
Yeah, I know for sure. We're talking about the world's most famous, or I guess infamous, villain
Darth
uh,
Vader.
from history. Yeah, allegedly. I mean, Genghis Khan and some others might be up there too.
Yeah.
But yeah, Adolf Hitler
Heil.
is is he? Well, he's dead now. But
Yeah, he'd be
did
dead
he
now.
survive? Are the accounts of his official death on April 30th, 1945, a fabrication?
Mm.
We're going to be talking about the conspiracy theories, whether he escaped, whether he lived for several more decades, whether he fathered children.
Oh.
All of those different things that we'll be talking about today. So, without further ado, Will, any thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns before we get into the final days or the alleged final days of Hitler's life?
No.
Alrighty, yeah, let's get into it. So, I won't talk too much about World War II. If you went to grade school in the US or Europe or really just anywhere in the world, World War II was definitely something that was talked about. And obviously, you had Hitler brought up. Hitler was the leader of the Axis powers. But yeah, then you got the Allied powers, the USA, you got England.
USA.
Uh,
USA.
yeah, France didn't really do much because they got taken over 0.5 seconds after Hitler
Yeah.
decided to.
And technically speaking, England didn't do much either. They had to call us
Hey,
the redheaded stepchild.
they held their land. A little bit easier when you're an island.
Yeah.
but but yes. So let's talk about the official account, and then we'll talk about where the conspiracy theories deviate from there. So. Yeah, in the final days of World War II, the Allied powers had been beaten up on the Japanese, they had been beaten up on the Germans, and they were slowly making their way into Germany. At a certain point, Hitler realizes, "Oh shoot, my Third Reich, it's not going to last for 1,000 years. Actually, it's probably going to last for less than a decade." And so, yeah, really by early 1945, Germany's on the brink of defeat. D-Day had happened just about a year earlier. The Soviet Red Army was advancing from the east, so you got the Allied powers coming from the west. You got the Soviet Union coming from the east. German cities were being bombed daily. Hitler's most loyal commanders were starting to flake out and lose faith. So Hitler, around January 1945, he decides to permanently move into what was called the Bunker, which was a fortified underground shelter beneath the city of Berlin.
Mm.
As January turned into February and then to March and into April, Hitler was becoming increasingly more isolated. He was starting to physically and mentally deteriorate. He was showing signs of tremoring, paranoia, and rage. Apparently, to those closest to him, he was still having delusional hopes that Germany could still win, and he was issuing irrational military orders. So, yeah, I mean, things were not looking good.
Yeah.
Eventually, you had the Battle of Berlin, which began on April 16th, 1945. Soviet forces were starting to close in. Hitler was starting to receive news that his closest allies were either surrendering or dead. On April 28th, Mussolini was executed. Another ally, Heinrich Himmler, was starting to negotiate with the Allies.
Mm.
And yeah, Hitler's just like, all right, man, the end is coming. I either need to, off myself or I need to maybe escape somewhere. So
Yeah.
on April 29th, Hitler married Eva Braun in a small civil ceremony in his bunker.
Mm.
He dictated a last will and testament blaming the Jews and generals for
Mm.
Germany's defeat.
Yeah.
And April 30th is the day on question. So I'll share the official account, and April 30th is where things start to deviate.
Yeah.
But April 30th comes. Again, remember, Mussolini had just been executed 2 days before. 2 weeks before April 30th, the Battle of Berlin was happening. So Hitler was probably hearing the sounds of battle from his few-headed bunker. And here we go. So April 30th, he and Eva retire to their private study. And the official report is
Mm.
that Hitler took a Walther PPK pistol, put it to his head, and blew his brains out.
Ooh.
Eva Braun took cyanide
Mm-hmm.
and died that way. And it was said that their suicides were planned and rehearsed with meticulous detail. Hitler had even tested cyanide on his dog Blondie to ensure its effectiveness.
Oh boy.
So, yeah, this is one of those times where I'm just like, what the dog do, man? Like,
Yeah.
what the dog do? So if the official report is due, it's just like, come on, man,
Come
why you
on.
have to do that to Blondie, right?
Like, listen, I get it. You didn't like the Jews, but come on, man, leave the dogs out of it.
Right, right. So, but yeah, so if the official report is true, um, oh, 1 second. Can you pause it for a second?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, as you were saying.
So yeah, it's if the official report is true, then what happened next is that two of Hitler's personal aides, Otto Gunsch and Heinz Ling. By the way, if any of y'all speak German and I'm mispronouncing these, sorry about that. Um, they discovered the bodies and, per Hitler's instructions, wrapped the corpses in a blanket, carried them to a garden outside of the bunker, doused them with gasoline, and set them on fire to prevent the Soviets from capturing them.
Mm.
Now, did it work? Well, by May 2nd, Soviet forces broke into the bunker. After a careful search, they discovered the charred remains of Hitler. The remains were incomplete and severely burned, but they
Mm.
were able to get dental fragments and the jawbone. And again, if the official reports were true, they did match Hitler's dental record. We'll talk about those in just a second.
Yeah.
Here's why conspiracy theories started, and here's where there are certainly questions. The Soviets kept their findings a secret,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they decided that they wanted to spread misinformation, or maybe it was truthful information. We don't know for sure with 100% certainty.
Yeah.
But when news outlets started to ask them of like, "Hey, what was going on or what happened?" What they said was like, "Oh, well, we broke in and we didn't find Hitler. We think maybe he escaped to Argentina or to
Mm.
um, another part of Europe. But yeah, we went in there and we didn't really find anything. Um, Other reports were saying like, oh yeah, no, we did find Hitler's body. We found the burned remains, and we're seeking it out. So the Soviet Union was giving mixed messages, and it's just like,
Mm.
hey, who's telling the truth? Well, we do know there are no photos of Hitler's body. The Soviet Union really didn't give over the remains for a really long time. They first buried him, then exhumed it, then reburied it several times. I think his body, if it is his body, is ultimately buried in Magdeburg, East Germany. Um, but yeah, this is where things get really complicated. So in 1970, the KGB ordered that the remains be destroyed to prevent any future Nazi shrine. And so the bones were incinerated and the ashes were scattered in a river. So who knows, right? In 2000, Russian officials gave what they said was a fragment of Hitler's jawbone to be examined. And, the official report is that, oh, yeah, it matched Hitler's dental records. So, any theories that he escaped
Mm.
uh, can be put to rest. But that's the story. So,
Yeah.
before we get into the official record, Will, what are your thoughts? Do you have any questions? Do you have any concerns?
I mean, that just, I feel like that just kind of adds to the theory, you know? They bounced around the whole time. They concealed information. They didn't take photos. So really the only evidence we have is hearsay, if that's what I'm understanding. And, you know, it's like I could say one thing, Steven can say another thing, and then there's no proof to determine whether Steven's telling the truth or I'm telling the truth. It kind of reminds me a little bit. I don't think we'll ever cover this on the podcast, but there's another conspiracy theory about someone not being dead, and that's Osama bin Laden. And the reason why people don't think Osama bin Laden was dead was because there was no video really of him. We dumped his body in the sea because we didn't want a shrine to be made. So it's like, is he really dead? And so that kind of like I could see how that fuels the fire to be like, did Hitler die? And the reason why is because like the whole reason we actually started this episode was because I saw TikTok, and I did eventually want us to cover this topic, but I saw TikTok and it said a dead Hitler gives the world closure, an alive Hitler keeps the world on edge. So why wouldn't the Russians say, "Oh yeah, Hitler's dead, we're good," you know, just to cover it up?
For sure, yeah. And this episode reminds me in many ways of our John Wilkes Booth episode, because it's like if John Wilkes Booth is dead, the world can kind of be at peace. But if he did escape, I mean, the U.S. government wouldn't want people to know that got out, right? Um, this is I tend to believe the official record because I'm just kind of
Yeah,
that guy.
you're
But
yeah, you're a man of law.
but I will say this: this is where I at least have questions. The Soviet Union is the one that found their body, or his
Mhm.
body, apparently. I don't necessarily trust the Soviet Union,
No, I
and
mean, and that's where like I'm saying, like you're right. Like I would not trust the Soviet Union. Like I would probably trust Russia today. Like if Russia today had done all this, I would have been like, oh sure, yeah, they found Hitler's body. But like the Soviet Union, man, they were shady. I mean, both of us were shady. The U.S. and the Russia were shady back in the day. So like, you can't really trust either one.
for sure, yeah, and it's just like they had total control of Hitler's remains for a long time, and
Yeah,
so like really the only ones that would know the truth would be then them, and if they told the truth, great. But I mean, if they were lying to us, how would we know that they're lying, right?
yeah,
And
because all the guys that probably are involved are dead at this point.
for
Either
sure.
dead or they're old and they got Alzheimer's. But I
Now,
mean, most of those people are probably dead.
for sure. Now, where I at least tend to believe the official record at least a little bit is they did provide some dental fragment, like Russia in 2000. And again, I mean, I don't think any current agencies really would have any incentive to. Well, actually, maybe they would have incentive to lie because again, what you just said. A dead Hitler brings comfort to the world, but an alive one keeps the world on edge. So
Yeah, because like imagine like I feel like the incentive back then was the same as it is today, but it's kind of like if you think about it. I mean, like think about it. If you were a Jew, okay, because I'm kind of thinking about their people too. If you think about if you're a Jew or if you're like a World War II vet or not even like a World War II vet, if you're like a German, and you know all these years later, everybody's like, we want to make sure that you're telling the truth, and they do the dental records, and then this actually isn't Hitler. Like imagine how the Jews probably feel if they came out and said, guess what, Hitler didn't die, he lived on in Argentina to be an old man, had some kids, lived a happy life, and had a happy ending. That's not going to sit well with Jews. That's
no,
not going to
no,
sit well
not at
with
all.
a lot
Yeah,
of
no,
people.
that's going to bother a lot of people for
Oh
sure.
yeah. So that's why I could see the incentive of maybe, maybe. But the other thing too is like it's like how can these one question I don't know how dental records work, but it's like how can you analyze this jawbone you say that is, say that was 2005 and that was 45 he died, so that would be 70 years later, and you're like, oh yeah, here's this jawbone, and we can tell it was Hitler's, and it's like how it's 70 years old, most of his body was charred, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I'll yeah, let's actually talk about the some of the theories because Stalin was actually directly involved in this, right? So
Oh boy.
you had this official conference called the Potsdam Conference, um, and there Stalin told Western leaders, like leaders of America and England and other Western European countries, he told them Hitler might have escaped. He told them that at an official conference. Now, at the same time, some of his officials were saying, no, Hitler died. We found his body. Other officials are saying, no, he could have escaped. We don't really know what happened. So, again,
Mm,
it's hard to discern reality from fiction because the Soviet Union was kind of speaking out of both
yeah.
ends.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what's tricky about it.
but it's just like, Stalin, I, I do think he had the motive to lie. I
Hmm.
think if he did have Hitler's body and he's just like, oh, let me confuse the Western people, because he wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily friends with America,
No.
there is reason to lie. But at the same time, could it also be true that they didn't find his body and he was just reporting, like, yeah, we didn't find anything. So, I think Hitler might have escaped.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too is so who was at this conference?
Let me look it up.
Because that's what my question is gonna be. Because if it was military members and like members of like the president of the United States or like Churchill was there and like that sort of stuff, I could definitely see Stalin being like, yeah, Hitler might have escaped. But if it was like a group of actual people, I don't think he would say that.
Right, for sure.
Just because it's like that kind of adds to the scarcity, like, oh my gosh, Hitler escaped. What are we gonna do?
Okay, yeah. The conference took place from July 17th to August 2nd, 1945, in Potsdam, a suburb of Berlin. Um, but okay, let's see. It looks like Stalin. So Stalin was there.
Yeah.
Um, oh, they're saying Truman was there.
Mm,
President Truman, because FDR had just died,
yeah.
and Winston Churchill was there for the first half.
Okay.
He was replaced mid-conference by Clement Attlee, who won the election on July 26th, so he became the next prime minister. But Winston Churchill was there for the first half of the conference.
Mm.
Um, so, oh shoot, man, there's some pretty big people at this conference.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I was wondering if it was like big wigs up in this, because that would make me be like, okay, then I could see Stalin telling the leaders, like, listen, well, yes, we've taken down the Nazis. Hitler might have escaped.
Right, exactly. So yeah, we got some big wigs.
Did
Okay,
you Did you
Go
know
ahead.
something? I mean, you'll probably. I don't know if you'll mention this, but did you know that they actually have sealed off the bunker?
I did
That
not.
the bunker is still there, but they've sealed it. So it's kind of like, well, what are y'all hiding? You know why? I like maybe it's the whole shrine thing, but I think it would be kind of cool if. What if we were able to go inside Hitler's bunker?
Hey, who's stopping us from breaking in?
The first people in like 70 years to go
Uh,
inside Hitler's bunker.
And the answer to who would stop us from breaking in, the government of Germany. But
Yeah. I wonder if we could somehow get special permission to do that.
who knows, man? Yeah. But hey, let's get into the theories because we got a lot of content to cover, and then of course we got our Chat GPT story.
Yeah.
The first theory is that Hitler fled to Argentina
Yeah.
via submarine, and that he was living among Nazi sympathizers. This is the most popular theory because there actually are Nazis that escaped to Argentina and lived
Yeah.
there for a while.
Yep.
So this
I
happened.
wonder. Do
Go
you
ahead.
have the reason why they choose Argentina? Because like every single time you talk about Nazis, they always went to Argentina. Like, what is it with Argentina?
Yeah, that's a good question. From what I could tell, uh, it's kind of like one or two kind of went there because they already had some connections, and then
Mm-hmm.
those guys had connections, and so it just kind of,
Yeah.
it's like the Somalians in Minnesota, right? Like one Somalian family moves there, then they bring their friends, then those friends bring their families, and then those families.
Yeah.
Before you know it, there's a bunch of Somalians in Minnesota. So
Yeah.
it seems to be kind of that's what was going on with
We know
our.
why Steven would run away to Argentina because he likes
find
big booty
find me
Latinos.
a beautiful Latina Argentinian wife.
Yep. He likes them big booty Latinos.
Oh my goodness! All right. So anyway, um,
Oh man.
any Latinas? My DMs are open. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just
Oh
kidding.
my gosh. No.
That was a joke. Don't do that. Yeah, I
Oh
already get
man.
enough interesting DMs. So no, no, no,
I bet.
no more, no more. So,
I bet.
um,
Well, well, never mind. It's past Valentine's Day. Maybe
yeah,
next Valentine's Day. We're gonna do speed dating with Steven.
but the leader of the Argentinian government, Juan Perón, he helped he did provide refuge to
Mm-hmm.
Nazi war criminals like not Adolf Hitler but Adolf Eichmann, who eventually was captured in 1960. There's another Nazi, Josef Mengele. He stayed there in Argentina for a while. But yeah, they made their way in through falsified documents, and often had the help of, this is actually really interesting, Catholic clergy and
Mm.
Red Cross travel passes. So I'm not saying the Catholic Church was
Ah,
helping,
so Catholics support Nazis.
but clergy within the Catholic Church were helping them. So uh,
Sure.
sorry, Catholics. I'm
You know what? Wait, Steven, you know, like
the messenger. I just report the facts, but
eventually we're gonna like cover the Vatican and like because the Vatican is a big conspiracy egg. Once you jump down that rabbit hole, it's wild. Imagine like inside the Vatican, they have like Hitler cryogenically frozen because the Catholic Church is going to help him lead the Fourth Reich. Like he's gonna, they're gonna, well, can't it be the Third Reich because that has already happened? So he's got to do the Fourth Reich. So they're gonna like, they got him cryogenically frozen in the Vatican.
yeah, yeah. Well, will
The
there be a
Catholics love Nazis.
hey?
Glad I'm Protestant.
Was Hitler Catholic, or
I
am I wrong
don't
about that?
know. Let's see.
I
Keep
think
keep
he
going.
identified as some kind of Christian.
Yeah, yeah. You
I would
keep
say he was,
going.
but
I'll look it up while you talk.
okay. Um, there was a book released in 2011 by two men, Simon Dunstan and Gerard Williams. It's called Grey Wolf: The Escape of Adolf Hitler, and it was they made the book using interviews with locals, classified documents from the FBI and CIA, and other intelligence memos. And they claimed that Hitler lived in Argentina until 1962 and actually got married and had two daughters.
Oh, wait. So who got married and had $2?
Hitler.
Oh, so that's one of the theories is that you get
That's
married.
that. Yeah, that's the claim. Um, I will say this: the book has been criticized as not having verification outside of the book itself.
Mhm.
Um, so again, nobody's been able to substantiate the interviews and things that they have, but there for several decades were people in Argentina that reported seeing Hitler, and they were like, "Yeah, Hitler's here. He's living here. He's part of this community." And the FBI and CIA actually investigated a lot of these claims. The conclusion they ended up reaching was that they didn't think Hitler was actually in Argentina, but the classified documents are available to the public, so if any of you guys are interested, you can go. I went and looked it up too. There wasn't anything too crazy in there. It's just like, oh yeah, this guy said he saw Hitler, and they're like, yeah, we went and checked it out, but we didn't find
Yeah.
anything. It's kind of boring actually, but it is interesting that many people for several decades in Argentina legitimately thought that they saw Adolf Hitler. So
Mm, who knows?
I don't know. Yeah, just bring some questions. So
Well, I looked it up, by the way, and Hitler was baptized Catholic.
okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So, Catholics, hey, sorry, you can claim the best of y'all, but you also have to deal with the worst of y'all, right? So,
Yep, y'all had Hitler in your ranks. We know
right.
you're hiding him in Argentina.
Okay, so let's get to some of the other theories. So, the Argentina one is the most credible theory. Uh, the other theories I found are actually, they're a bit fringe and kind
Yeah.
of silly, but I'll share them, and then we'll get into our ChatGPT story. Um, but one of the theories, I always got to bring it up, but aliens.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Aliens came down, abducted Adolf Hitler, and that's why he wasn't seen from ever again because aliens came and.
So, so the two theories we got is Hitler moved to Argentina and lived out his life, or he got abducted by aliens and he's training Martians to kill Jews.
Something like that, man. That would be actually an interesting theory. There's another fringe one, but there's theories that he had a secret Nazi base in Antarctica. And so
Mm,
he stayed in Argentina for a while, but he eventually made his way to Antarctica because the FBI and CIA were putting heat on him in Argentina. So he's like, I need to get out of here. Um, again, not a whole lot of credible sources on that one, but there were some people that reported like, yeah, that's what happened. So 1 second, probably can you pause it again? Oh,
Antarctica.
so yeah, maybe they set up a base in Antarctica. That's one of the other theories. Um, the last few theories are him escaping to various places. Some say that he escaped to Spain. Some say that he escaped to Brazil. One theory kind of combines all of them. It's like, okay, he hopped around from place to place, just evading people. Um, but yeah, really, as far as theories go, all of them have the consistent theme of Hitler did not kill himself. Why would he? He had built up so much to this point, and yeah, people that knew Hitler personally, a lot of them were just like, he was not the kind of man that would end his life by his own hands. He's the kind of guy that would keep fighting and keep moving around to the very end. And so I do think that's one reason this conspiracy theory continues to persist because to think that really history's greatest villain ended his story like that seems kind of
Yeah.
to a lot of people. And so people are like, come on, he surely must have had a more interesting ending than that, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the greatest betrayer in history hanged himself. So,
True,
yeah.
true. So, with that, any thoughts, comments, or questions before? Well, actually, I'll ask you this, and then we'll get into our ChatGPT story. What do you think happened? Do you tend to believe the official record? Do you think that maybe the Argentina theory is true?
I, I, I think he did live. Um, the reason why I think Hitler survived is just because I mean, like you said, I mean the official documentation, it's all over the place. You've got Stalin sitting in front of all these world leaders saying yes, Hitler might have escaped, and then you've got these other officials saying, well, we found his body burnt, and then it's like, well, we incinerated the body. Who knows? And then it's like, it's all over the place. If anything, I think you're right. I don't think Hitler, if these people are right, that Hitler's not the kind of man to just kill himself. Maybe this was his way of escaping. Maybe if they did find charred remains and it was charred beyond recognition, who's not to say that I could knock a couple of my teeth out and then place them on a charred body, and then now you think that this charred corpse is mine,
Right. Yeah.
but I'm chilling in Argentina with no front teeth, you know? Like, it's so easy to fake dental records, I feel like, by just knocking out a couple of your own teeth. And then, like, but that's the reason why I think the reason why I don't believe it is because the reports are all over the place. And then you've got
It's,
actual locals who are like, oh, we've seen Hitler. Yeah, Hitler shops down here at my grocery store. You know, that's just where I think if anything, Hitler either lived in Argentina or he did one of those where he just kind of bounced around from place to place. But I don't think he died in that bunker.
I I tend to believe the official record, but to your point, you have weird stuff going on in the Soviet Union. They're giving inconsistent reports. And then like why are so many people in Argentina reporting that they're seeing Hitler? Like that's just weird.
Yeah.
Like that's
And
not
just
something
like,
that normally happens.
because the
Right.
only people who have any record to say anything about what happened to Hitler is the Russians, is the Soviets. And the Soviets took no photos at all. They just said, yeah, we found his body. Dental records might have matched, but there's no photographs. There's nothing.
Yeah, so most of the reports come from Patagonia, which is in Argentina. And I mentioned that because in our Chat GPT story, um,
Oh boy.
Will and I actually traveled to Patagonia, and
Yep.
some interesting things happened. So,
So before we go to that, I mean, you got my opinion. Like, I know you want to believe the official reports, but is there any ounce of you that thinks he did flee to like Argentina or something?
yeah, like I said, because of those two weird things of the Soviet Union's being giving inconsistent reports, and with him, all those people in Argentina saying they saw Hitler, part of me is like, okay, I think maybe it's a possibility. Um, I lean a little bit more towards the official record just because I was like, okay, well, I
Yeah.
think I think with the Battle of Berlin and stuff going on, I think it would have been really, really hard for Hitler to have escaped.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying it's impossible. I actually didn't mention this, but um, some secret tunnels and stuff have been found hidden underneath
So
Berlin.
it is possible.
It's possible. Now, it's not clear whether they were connected to Hitler's bunker, and because it's sealed off, there's really just no way to find it. But if it was connected to Hitler's bunker, I think this would bolster the theory a lot more.
Oh yeah. So maybe then me and you need to be the first people inside his bunker in 70 years.
Hey, man, let's check
Let
it.
us in. We want to know the secrets.
Let's see if we can get some special permission.
Because here's the thing, like I said, I believe he went to Argentina and lived. But if me and you are able to access the bunker for Beyond the Campfire to be the first people to document this thing, and we go in there and we crack the case, I mean, we really can crack the case here because if we go in that bunker and there's no connection to those tunnels, then Hitler died in that bunker.
Absolutely, yeah. So, alrighty. Well, our ChatGPT story it's longer today,
Oh
but
boy,
I think it's a really fun one, and
let me
I
pull it
hope
up.
you guys enjoy it. So, um, well, I think you remember what voices we're doing, so
Yep.
you
I
can.
know who I'm. Hitler and Will, and you're the narrator.
I'm the narrator and myself, and so I'll try to switch up the voices just a little bit so you guys don't get too confused. But
Mhm.
yeah, we will go from there. So, alrighty, without further ado, Beyond the Campfire: The Search for Hitler. Here we go. The jungle buzzed with heat and insects, a white-green chorus that never stopped singing. Will adjusted the brim of his weather-worn hat, spitting a sunflower seed into the underbrush. He stood like a statue carved from denim and dust, dual pistols resting at his hips, his mustache twitching with the scent of danger. Behind him, Stephen knelt near the ground, examining the carved stone threshold of a forgotten building swallowed by vines and time. It's him, Stephen said quietly, brushing away moss to reveal the faint curling edges of a swastika carved into the rock. The rumors weren't just talk. This place, it's Nazi.
Been chasing ghosts since we hit Buenos Aires. And now you want to tell me Hitler's down in the crypt like a snake in a hole?
Steven stood, brushing dirt from his jeans. Not just down here, alive, or something close to it. They exchanged a glance. Will was skeptical and brash. Stevens was firm, eyes glowing with the kind of truth only faith could give. You think I'd be here if I didn't believe it?
All right, brother. Let's go find Hitler.
The inside of the compound was cold, the kind of cold that doesn't come from weather. It came from the presence of something wrong. They passed rusted steel doors, old Nazi documents moldering in forgotten file cabinets, blueprints with grotesque sketches of mechanical limbs and labeled Project Gothamrung. Stephen paused, laying a hand gently on Will's shoulder. Before we go any further, we should pray.
Will hesitated. Fine, but make it
Will
quick.
hesitated, but stopped.
Fine, make it quick.
Father, we don't know what we're about to face, but we know evil when we smell it. Give us strength, give us courage, and if this truly is the man who brought such ruin to the world, let us be your sword. A metallic whir echoed from deeper inside the halls. They moved silently now, side by side, one ready to draw steel, the other ready to speak the word. Then they found it. The chamber opened like a wound, walls lined with glowing tech, buzzing wires laced through ancient stone like cancer. And in the center, suspended by chains and cables like a marionette of hate, the monster himself, Adolf Hitler. Or what was left of him. One eye was still flesh, cold and dark. The other, a glowing red lens. His left arm was a mechanical claw with syringe-like fingers. His legs had been replaced entirely with a brutal, piston-driven exoskeleton. His chest was part iron lung, part power core.
Welcome in.
The voice hissed, half German, half modem.
So, the cowboy and the Indian.
Will didn't hesitate. He drew, fast as lightning, but before he could fire, Hitler's arm jerked up with impossible speed. Clang! A blast of white-hot plasma carved a trench in the wall beside Will's head.
You're a long way from Texas,
The cyborg sneered.
and you've come to die.
Will took cover behind a support pillar.
I ain't from Texas,
He shouted back.
and I don't die easy.
Stephen, heart pounding, ducked beside him. This is real. It's really him,
You weren't kidding about the Hitler part.
Will muttered. Stephen nodded, his voice steady despite the chaos. We're not leaving till he's finished, for good. Will smirked, reloading.
You got a prayer for that?
I've got plenty. A second blast from Cyborg Hitler's plasma cannon tore through the chamber, incinerating the Nazi banners behind Will and Stephen as the two dove for cover. The concrete trembled. Chunks of ceiling rained down. Will rolled, took aim, and fired. Bang, bang. Two perfect shots. One struck a steel joint in Hitler's exoskeleton, sending a puff of smoke into the air. The other ricocheted harmlessly off a shoulder plate.
Gonna need a bigger gun,
Will growled. Stephen reached into his satchel and pulled out a small, hand-carved wooden cross. I didn't bring a gun, he said. Will stared at him.
You're kidding me.
Stephen met his eyes. I brought something better. Will smirked.
You're insane.
From the end of the chamber, the monster dropped down from his cables like a wolf from the trees. His mechanical legs hissed and pumped, slamming into the ground with enough force to crack the stone.
You are children.
Hitler said, his voice a guttural mix of man and machine.
Weak, divided, believing in cowboys and dead gods.
He raised his claw. A burst of compressed energy surged from it. Will dove again. Too late. A bolt hit his leg. He screamed and dropped,
Ah!
sliding across the floor. Will! Stephen shouted, running toward him. A net, steel mesh, electrified, sprang from a hidden port in the ceiling. It slammed into Stephen mid-sprint, pinning him with a jolt. He cried out, "Ah!" clutching the cross, which now glowed faintly in the flickering light of the lab. Cyborg Hitler loomed above them, face twitching with simulated glee. A mechanical limb reached down and tore the pistols from Will's belt. Another scooped up Stephen, still writhing, and clamped him into a standing restraint that hissed and clicked shut.
Now,
Hitler said, turning away, dragging them both forward the center of the room.
they will listen, they will understand, and they will die.
They were chained upright beneath a dome of ancient gears and flickering monitors, surrounded by relics of war, both old and terrifyingly new. Will gritted his teeth through the pain. Stephen's shirt was singed, but his gaze was steady.
I should be dust.
Hitler began, walking in slow circles around them.
History's shame, buried beneath ash and rubble. But I had a vision.
His hand extended, and a hologram blinked to life. Images of collapsing bunkers, desperate scientists, grotesque surgeries.
They thought me mad when I demanded escape at any cost. A brain in a jar, a heart replaced with synthetic fiber, the body reconstructed over decades, cell by cell, steel by steel. Here, in the silence of Patagonia, I waited while the world rotted.
Will spat blood.
You wait a long time for someone to kick your teeth in.
Hitler sneered.
Still the cowboy.
He turned to Stephen.
But you are more interesting. The faithful one. You believe your God has triumphed, that love conquered evil.
Stephen didn't flinch. It did, and it still will. Hitler chuckled,
Ha ha ha.
a sound like metal grinding bone.
Then witness the failure. I am the last breath of the old world, and soon I will rise again. Nations are confused, weak. I have agents in Silicon Valley, in Moscow, in Washington. With my technology and my will, I will bring the order again, the perfect order, through fear.
He paused.
And you will be the first martyrs of the new age.
He raised his claw, charging for a final blow. Will twisted violently against the restraints, chains clanging.
I swear, if I get loose, they won't.
Hitler interrupted coldly. Just then, something sparked in Stephen's cross. A glow, brighter now, humming. The chamber flickered. Something ancient stirred in the air. Will turned his head slowly, eyes wide.
Steven, what's your cross doing?
Stephen looked down at it. I don't know, he said. Then the light burst.
Bible man.
The chamber was filled with a roaring white light, pure, unfiltered, searing to the eyes but gentle to the soul. Time itself seemed to stretch. The whirring of Cyborg Hitler's system slowed. His glowing eye flickered.
What is this?
He rasped, stepping back, shielding his face with his claw. Stephen's wooden cross hovered from his chest, bathed in golden fire. The air shimmered. Will stared, slack-jawed, at the light condensed into a shape. A man, taller than any man he'd ever seen, clothed in robes of flame and silver, with a sword that burned like the sun. When he spoke, the stone walls shook. Unhand the servants of the Most High! Cyborg Hitler screamed, a mixture of static and agony.
999, Nightmaglik.
The being raised his sword, and with a single sweep, the restraints around Stephen and Will shattered, bursting like glass. The chains fell in silence. Will clasped to his knees. Stephen remained standing, his eyes wide with wonder. The figure stepped forward, wings unfolding from his back, each feather gleaming with divine power. He was terrible and beautiful, the warrior of heaven made flesh. Who who are you? Stephen asked. The figure looked at him with eyes like stars. I am Michael, prince of the heavenly host. Will blinked.
The angel. That Michael?
Michael turned to him, smiling faintly. Yes, cowboy, that Michael. Cyborg Hitler shrieked and raised his plasma cannon, but Michael extended a hand. A shield of golden light appeared and absorbed the blast like raindrops on a rooftop. You were cast down once, Michael said, voice like thunder. And now you dare rise again in steel and pride? Your schemes will fall like Babel. With a cry of fury, Michael leapt into the air. Ah! And drove his sword down into the center of Hitler's power core. Sparks flew. Hitler staggered, howling, black smoke pouring from his chest. He stumbled into the shadows, systems screaming. But before Michael could pursue him, the ground trembled. From deep beneath the chamber, an escape platform, some infernal Nazi-designed elevator descended, swallowing Cyborg Hitler in fire and steel. Then, silence. The chamber began to collapse. Michael turned to the two men, his presence dimmed slightly, his form almost fading. The cross returned to Stephen's hand, no longer glowing, but now warm with heavenly fire. I must go, the angel said. The war is not only here. Stephen stepped forward. Wait, what are we supposed to do now? He's still alive. He's planning something big. Michael looked at them both. First Stephen, then Will. God is with you. His spirit is upon you. You have all you need. Will shook his head.
You're telling me we're going to take on a half metal Hitler with my guns and in his Sunday school verses?
Michael's eyes gleamed. Yes. A sudden wind surged through the chamber. In a burst of light and wind, the archangel vanished, leaving behind only the echo of wings and the scent of ozone. Stephen looked at his cross, then at Will. We're really going to do this, aren't we? Will got to his feet, flexing his sore limbs and reholstering his pistols.
Looks like it's up to the cowboy and the Indian.
He said.
Let's finish what Evan started.
They turned toward the dark passage below, where Hitler had escaped. The hunt wasn't over. The stone floor cracked open where the escape platform had vanished, revealing a rusted spiral staircase that spiraled deep into the earth, disappearing into darkness like the throat of some ancient beast. Will lit a cigar.
Well,
He muttered, exhaling smoke.
down we go into the belly of the Nazi robot apocalypse.
Stevens tightened the strap of his satchel and descended first, holding his cross out like a lantern. Its warm glow lit the way, pushing back the shadows just enough to see the rusted rails, the Nazi insignia etched in every corner, and the flicker of low blue lights pulsing from below. The deeper they went, the colder it became. When they reached the bottom, they stepped into a tunnel, long, curved, built of concrete and steel. Wires ran like veins along the walls. Wills drew his pistols. Stephen quietly began to recite Psalm 23 under his breath. Then they saw it. A door, wider than a barn, marked Project Weltbrand, Project Worldfire. Let's see. Will looked at Stephen.
This feels like one of those times we're not supposed to open the big evil door.
Stephen nodded solemnly. So, of course we're going to go. Will smirked.
That's my brother.
They shoved the door open. Inside was a vast command center, screens mounted on ancient stone pillars, cables spilling across the floor like black serpents. In the center was a massive glowing table, a digital map of the globe. Red dots blinked across every continent. Drones, missiles, satellites, robotic sleeper agents, biomechanical hybrids, schematics spun in the air. Stephen leaned in, his jaw clenched. He's not just planning a return. Will nodded grimly.
He's planning the end.
A voice crackled from the speakers, broken, metallic, unmistakable.
You see now,
Said Hitler.
you see the future. Your world dies, so mine may rise.
The screen shifted. Footage rolled of factories hidden beneath mountains. Biomech troopers marching through shadows. A countdown timer appeared at the top of the screen. Operation Godderfall. 47 hours until global deployment. Stephen's eyes widened. He's going to launch them all at once. Will slammed a fist onto the table.
We take this whole place down right now.
But before they could act, the walls around them shifted. Panels slid open, steel plating groaned. From hidden alcoves stepped four armored soldiers, nearly 8 feet tall, eyes glowing red, spines made of exposed wiring and bone. Will? Stephen whispered. I think we've got company. Will twirled his pistols.
I'll take left, you take right.
Stephen looked at him. With what? Will shrugged.
Pray aggressively.
The battle erupted. Bullets ricocheting, energy blasts searing past their heads. Will danced between cover like a seasoned gunslinger, shooting at the joints of one mech soldier until it collapsed in a sparking heat. Stephen ducked and dodged, dodging a crushing blow just in time and slamming his cross into a power conduit. Boom! An arc of holy fire shot from the contact and blasted the mech into the wall. 2 down, the remaining 2 advanced. Then, a hiss from above. From a platform that descended with the sound of grinding metal, Cyborg Hitler returned. Rebuilt, reinforced, half of his face, now a sculpted metal skull. One arm now, a triple-barreled plasma launcher. His torso armored with glowing runes pulsing with stolen power.
I have evolved.
He roared.
Flesh is weak, but I am eternal.
He landed with a crash, cracking the floor beneath him. Will stared at him.
I really hate this guy.
Stephen stepped forward, holding the cross like a sword. And I'm not afraid of you. Hitler's eyes glowed red.
You will be.
The battle for the world had begun. The mechs lay smoking in the shadows. Cyborg Hitler retreated behind a steel gate, sealed with a hiss, preparing his final assault. Will and Stephen stood in the wreckage of the command room, hearts pounding, sweat running down their brows. Breathing hard, the countdown on the screen tickered lower. 46 hours, 12 minutes. But neither man moved. Instead, they leaned against the edge of the war table, surrounded by the blinking lights of world-ending plans. Silence sat thick around them, like the eye of a hurricane. Stephen spoke first. I never thought we'd end up here, chasing a cyborg Nazi through Argentina, fighting with faith and bullets.
And to think I was worried about finals and whether I make it past college.
You made it. Barely. Don't think school really ever was your thing.
Yeah, well, some of us are just called to a higher fight.
The words hung the air. Stephen grew quiet. Do you remember when we met?
Yeah, college. Those discipleship meetings at the BCM really were something.
I was just some lonely Indian kid trying to figure out how to fit into a new town, hoping God hadn't forgotten me. Will looked at him, the flicker of guilt behind his usual smirk.
And I was sitting in the back row, figuring out my life and questioning God about everything.
Stephen gaze dropped to the floor. You asked if I really believed what I was saying about Jesus.
And you said,
I said I knew it was true because when I felt most alone, Christ was the only one who stayed.
you didn't know it then. But that night, you gave me a reason to believe again.
The hum of the machine seemed to fade into the background. There was only the glow of the cross and the memory of shared faith in the darkest places. I used to wonder if I had any real friends, anyone who'd stick with me no matter what. I didn't think a cowboy from South Georgia would be the answer to that prayer. Will stepped closer and put a hand on Stephen's shoulder.
You weren't just the answer. You were the brother I didn't know I needed.
Stephen's eyes welled up just slightly. And you were the family I didn't think I'd find. They stood there. Bless my name. They stood there, scarred. Oh, shoot, I lost my place. Sorry about that. Oh, here it is. Scarred, exhausted, but whole in a way that steel and circuits could never touch. Will tightened his grip on his pistols.
Uh, so what do you say, brother?
He
One
asked
more round.
low.
So what do you say? So what do you say, brother? One more round. One more miracle.
Stephen lifted his cross and looked toward the sealed gate where evil waited. I say we send this monster straight to hell. And in that moment, something shifted. Not in the room, in them. A courage deeper than adrenaline. A strength not from muscle, but from truth. The kind of resolve born when two broken men discovered they were made for this fight. Not because they were strong, but because they stood together. The gates before them began to open with a groan. Smoke poured through, red lights flashed. Cyborg Hitler's voice echoed like a war drum.
Come, Zinky cowboy. Come, Indian. Let us end this.
Will rolled his shoulders.
He just made this personal.
Stephen smiled, eyes like iron. It always was. And side by side, brothers, now in every way that mattered, stepped forward into the fire. The gate opened with a howl of smoke and steam, revealing a vast chamber, part cathedral, part war lab. Massive pillars rose into darkness, lined with ancient symbols and cables. In the center stood Cyborg Hitler, fully ascended. His body was a grotesque fusion of metal and flesh. Spinal coils gleamed, his right arm now a tri-barreled rotary cannon. His left, a mechanical claw dripping with flame. The swastika on his chest pulsed like a beating heart, red with malice. Above him, a warhead hovered, sleek, chrome, engraved with the words, Operation Godderfall, for the New Reich. He raised his weapon.
Your world ends now.
Will stepped forward, pistols drawn. But before they could charge, Stephen held out his hand. Will,
Yeah.
give me one of your pistols.
Wait, you want a gun, Mister? Turn the other cheek.
Stephen took a deep breath, eyes locked on Hitler. I studied Augustine, the doctrine of just war. Violence isn't holy, but resisting evil, real evil, sometimes is.
You're
Will
saying
laughed.
we'll raise an eyebrow.
Oh yeah, you're right. Will raised an eyebrow. Yep.
You're saying Jesus would be okay with shooting a Nazi cyborg in the face?
Stephen didn't blink. If it's to save the world and stop the Holocaust, yes.
Okay then, brother. Let's kick some Nazi ass.
He handed Stephen the spare revolver. Stephen took it, almost reverently, and whispered, "This isn't vengeance. It's justice."
Oh my gosh, you had to do the freaking Batman voice.
They moved as one. The final battle began. Cyborg Hitler opened fire, rounds of plasma screaming through the air. Will dove, rolled, and returned fire, bullets sparking off Hitler's titanium plating. Stephen moved behind columns, taking measured shots, quoting scripture with every pull of the trigger. "No weapon formed against me shall prosper." Blam! "The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name." Blam! But it wasn't enough. Hitler was fast. Too fast. He took every hit and kept advancing, his voice booming with cruel triumph.
Your God cannot save you.
A bolt of energy struck into Stephen in the side, knocking him into a pillar.
Stephen!
Will shouted. Will ran to him, panting, covered in soot. Stephen coughed, his shirt torn, but alive. "Guess I'm not bulletproof," Stephen muttered. Will knelt beside him, shielding them both behind cover as Hitler's fire tore through the chamber.
We're going to lose.
Will said, his voice cracking. Stephen shook his head slowly. "No, not yet." He took Will's hand. "We haven't prayed." Will looked at him, eyes wide.
Seriously? No.
Stephen nodded. "Now, we don't win this fight. God does." And there, in the midst of the chaos, they prayed. "Lord," Stephen whispered, "we are nothing without you, but with you, we are lions. Strengthen our hands, guide our aim, let us strike evil where it stands." Will added.
And if we don't make it out, just make sure we go down swinging.
A wind blew through the chamber. Stillness, then clarity. Will stood. Stephen rose beside him. They stepped out into the open. Cyborg Hitler roared.
You think the prayers?
Blam! Will's shot struck his core. Sparks flew. Blam! Stephen's bullet hit his targeting lens, shattering the red eye. Every shot they fired now hit true, guided like arrows from heaven. Their hands no longer shook, their courage no longer faltered. They moved like lightning, like prophecy. Will rolled beneath Hitler's claw, firing point blank into the arm joint. Stephen leapt from a fallen beam, shooting the hydraulic pack on Hitler's back. Metal screeched. Hitler faltered.
I am the failure!
He screamed. Stephen shouted back, "No, you're history." Together, they took one last shot. Both bullets hit the warhead above. Boom! The chamber exploded in white fire, imploding, collapsing, shattering. Everything went black. When the dust settled, Will and Stephen lay side by side, coughing, bruised but alive. The remnants of cyborg Hitler smoldered nearby, a melted claw, a shattered eye. The chamber was in ruins. Will laughed weakly.
Well, we did it.
Stephen smiled, battered and bloody. By the grace of God. Sirens blared in the distance. Argentine authorities arrived, but the world had been saved, and two brothers had stood in the gap. Epilogue. Weeks later, back in Georgia, the two sat together at Waffle House. A cross stood in the distance. The wind was warm. Will handed Stephen a sweet tea.
You know, next time you say yes to a mission, maybe let it be Hawaii.
Stephen grinned. Deal. They sat in silence for a while. Then Will raised his glass.
To brothers.
Stephen raised his too. To brothers. They clinked glasses, and somewhere far above them, the angels smiled.
This sounded like a VeggieTales story. This could have been a VeggieTales story, man. Could you imagine Larry and Bob fighting Mecha Hitler?
I know, right? Yeah. Ooh, that was
I gotta pray, Bob.
one. But yeah, that was interesting.
We gotta pray, Bob.
We gotta pray. So I liked it though. It was
good. It was long, but it was good.
It was long, but it was good. Yeah, but yeah, it was like VeggieTales meet Hitler meet our lives kind of combined in there somewhere. So.
Oh man. Well, guys, thank you guys for watching. We do greatly appreciate everything you guys do. And yeah, make sure you guys follow us on all our social medias. If you're still watching and you didn't just tune us out because we were like ChatGPT story over here. But yeah, if you guys like these ChatGPT stories, make sure you do subscribe, do comment, do like, share us with everybody, because if we get where we need to be, we might actually make these into comic books. But yeah, make sure if you want, we got to still film Steven's episode of England. We got to film my episode for Patreon. So make sure you go to Patreon if you want to figure out what we're talking about. And yeah, anything else, Steve?
I think that'll do it, brother.
All right. Well, Hitler's alive in Argentina. He's well, not anymore. He probably
died. He's a cyborg, apparently.
No. Yeah, fighting back at Hitler. But yeah, thank again, guys, for watching. We appreciate every single one of you. And